Hello everyone, welcome to the Scape and Run Parasites mod. So I wasn't sure whether to do one of these, so many other people are covering this, but it's been a while since I've been so captivated by a mod that it actually pulled me back into Minecraft. So first of all, I just want to say, I'm absolutely loving this. It's got a lot of similarities to the evolution system that I was quite fond of in the AVP mod, and I've been screwing around with it for about a few weeks now. Unfortunately, the impregnation system in AVP causes problems with parasites from this mod, so I can't mix them in their entirety, although I really want to. Anyway, I just want to say thank you to the lead developer, Dan Nantry, probably saying that wrong, I'm just going to call you Dan from now on, for responding to all the questions I had in regards to the mechanics of this mod and etc, etc. So anyway, the Scape and Run Parasite mod is spearheaded by Dan. Dan does all the coding and a lot of other stuff. You've also got Moonlit Lapse and Scaria, who have textured some of the mobs. We've also got Sandwich Horror and 216 Aaron, who helped Dan with the ideas. 216 and Carver also helped with testing the mod, so quite the team. Then there's literally thousands of us playing as well, reporting bugs. So we're all testers as well. Okay, so with the formalities out of the way, shall we just get straight into the nitty and gritty of the mod? So first of all, before we start explaining the mobs, there is something called evolution phases that will be coming to a later update. It's essentially going to balance the mod and have the parasites grow as a faction rather than randomly spawning as they are currently. But there is still some semblance of an evolution tree going on at the moment that we can go over. So to start off, we've got the Buglins. They spawn in the dark and are at the bottom of the parasitic tree. So they are the most weakest parasite, only being able to nibble on your toes. Although if you let them live, it can take from about 60 to 150 seconds for them to grow into a Ruptor. So Ruptors also have the luxury of spawning in the darkness, therefore bypassing the Buglin stage. Ruptors are the second step in the parasitic evolution tree. Ruptors are essentially conversion mobs. Their goal is to infect most of the vanilla mob variants in Minecraft and turn them into the infected variants of themselves. So far, the only ones that have functioning conversions are sheep, wolves, pigs, villagers, humans, and cows. It's probably an important thing to mention right now. The best way to kill parasites in this mod is to use fire. There is a configuration option to allow you to do even more damage to them. Speaking of the configuration file, it is extensive. There is a lot you can mess with in here. So, keep in mind, if you are going to kill these parasites, make sure you do it when they're Buglins or Ruptors. Otherwise, you're gonna have a problem. So anything above that level of Ruptor, anything that's infected and above, will have chances to spawn other parasites upon death. The types of creatures that pop out of the parasites that you kill can vary from Ruptors to Buglins to even their own heads on legs. However, sometimes you can get something called a Beacon. We'll get into that in a second, but Beacons are very, very, very bad. They are so bad that you want to drop everything you're doing and kill it instantly. But as I said, we'll talk about it after. So from here onwards, the next stage to move up the parasitic evolution tree is a little different. It sort of changes into a merge system, quite literally in the config files. It's called merge system. So the merge system requires one infected mob to consume or kill, or however you want to put it, 5 other mobs. Then it requires another 3 other infected mobs to be near it. So once both of those requirements are met, they will all melt down into these mobs called living flesh. And then they'll all merge together to form a random primitive parasite. So the primitive parasites are the next stage in the evolution tree. So there are currently 6 of them with their own variants and adapted versions. Variants meaning there's a chance it will spawn with a slightly different texture and attributes in either its adapted stage or primitive. In order for these creatures to reach their adapted evolution stage, they need to get 10 kills. All of them have individual abilities unique to them, and those abilities can get buffed if it can manage to evolve into its adapted version. The adapted versions will also do increased base damage, as well as some other stuff that I'm about to list. So first off, we have the primitive long arms. They've got a normal melee attack, but the lower its health, the more damage it will deal to you. You can tell it's going to do more damage by seeing this red particle effect appear around it, if you don't have some sort of way to view its health. Its adapted version carries over the same qualities, except it can spawn this infected block residue. This residue can spawn beacons. Once again, that's really bad, and we'll talk about that after. We'll also talk about the residue after as well. There is also a chance that a variant or mutation, if you will spawn that trades 50% of its health for 50% more damage. And you can spot these mutations on the adapted long arms just by looking at their teeth. Next up, we have the Primitive Reeker. It also has a normal melee attack, but with the added twist of applying poison to each hit. The Primitive Reeker also has a variant of its own, where it can spawn in with 50% less health and deal 50% more damage. Also has a different texture as well. Its adapted version doesn't have any variants, but it does carry over the same qualities from the normal Primitive Reekers. It also can spawn the infected block residue. Next up is the Primitive Manducator. So the Primitive Manducator is meant to go invincible in short bursts, but Dan thinks he broke it. Aside from that, it has a very fast melee attack, and its adapted version carries over the same qualities, and once again can also spawn the infected block residue. Next up, we have the Primitive Yellow Eye. The primitive version can shoot projectiles, but lacks a melee. Each projectile will apply poison to its target. The adapted version, however, cannot spawn any infested block residue, but it does shoot projectiles a lot faster, and it does increase its poison damage. And there are no variants at all for these two. Next one is the Primitive Bolster. This guy has a simple melee attack, but it can buff nearby parasites. Its adapted version can also spawn infected block residue, just like all the others. It has more range to buff nearby parasites, and also has the ability to pull entities towards it by extending its little tentacles. These two don't have any variants. Last of all, we have the Primitive Summoner. The Summoners have a normal melee attack, but their specialty is summoning Ruptors to fight for them. Its adapted version carries over the same qualities, except it can not only spawn Ruptors, but infected mobs as well. It can also spawn the infected block residue, just as most of the other ones can. So now that I've explained the entirety of what there is to offer in regards to what can come out of those little buglins, let's start explaining the beacons. So any parasite at all has a chance to spawn a beacon. On the off chance that it does, you're going to want to kill it in its first stage of evolution, as fast as you can. They've got 3 stages. The first stage will only spawn Ruptors if something manages to trigger its defense mechanism. It also has the ability to terraform a few blocks around it into infected blocks. These blocks have a chance to damage entities if something is on top of them, and as of currently, these types of blocks can spawn 2 different unique parasites out of them. The beacon itself can whack intruders if they get too close, and we'll get to those unique parasites in a second. So it takes 240 to 300 seconds approximately for the beacon to grow into its second stage. It can now spawn Ruptors, infected mobs, and one exclusive mob called a Flying Carrier. The Flying Carriers will home in on their targets and explode, spawning in Ruptors and Buglins. Its terraforming capabilities will accelerate and start spreading faster, and the chance/damage to entities getting damaged by the infested blocks will increase. So after about 300 to 360 seconds, the beacon will grow into its third and final stage. The beacon will now be able to spawn everything that has been mentioned so far, plus all primitive versions, and 3 more exclusive mobs. The first being the Heavy Carrier, which is a slow-moving ground version of the flying one. It will home in on its target really slowly, explode, spawning Ruptors, Buglins, and Yellow Eyes. The second being Warden. The Wardens have a normal melee attack. They can also sprint and jump like the others, but even faster. And they can also charge at you. They have a special charge attack. The third being a Vigilante. The Vigilantes have a normal melee attack if you get too close, but can also shoot poisonous projectiles. They will try to maintain a distance from their target though. So the level 3 beacon will be spreading its infection like mad now. Its infected blocks will have more chance to deal even more damage to entities, and it will continue spawning special mobs exclusive to these infected blocks. On the chance that you manage to kill a level 3 beacon, there is a 50-50 chance that they will spawn an ancient parasite. Yes, as if you thought it was bad enough. There is also a mechanic that cleans up the infected blocks whenever you kill a beacon, which is pretty neat. So once you kill a beacon, this residue will spread over the already infected blocks and turn them back into dirt. Anyway, the 2 ancient parasites as of the moment are the Dreadnought and the Overlord. The Dreadnought is a giant flying ancient parasite that can shoot projectiles which inflict withering upon hit. It also has an attack where it spawns in reinforcement pods from the sky, and when they land, they spawn even more parasites. The ancient Overlord, as of currently, just has a normal melee attack. It's still being worked on. Still, the size, melee damage, and the health amount is still going to make you shit yourself regardless when it pops up. So last thing to mention in regards to the infection system, in regards to the blocks themselves, there's 2 types of infested blocks. There is the residue, which is like a layer of snow, which usually comes off the adapted creatures. And then there is the actual infested blocks that the beacons create through the terraforming process. It's those blocks that can spawn 2 special mobs. Both of these exclusive mobs are immobile, so as long as you use a ranged weapon or of some type, you'll be fine. The first one is the Sentry, which is a parasite that can shoot poisonous projectiles and melt any gear that you have equipped. And the Kyphosis, which has a powerful melee swing. So that one's completely harmless to you as long as you can use a ranged weapon. And last of all, there are 2 weapons you can craft by picking up chunks of parasites and mushing them together. The Living Scythe and the Living Bow. If you can manage to get the necessary ingredients for these guys, they are insanely powerful. And that about wraps up the entirety of the Scape and Run Parasites mod. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to give me a thumbs up or a comment so I know you did. That sounded cringe. I never say that, just listen to me. This took me about a week to make, so if I find it wasn't useful to many people, I won't bother with another one because there's already other people covering this mod. There's plenty of people covering this mod. However, if this video does well, I'll for sure do another spotlight when the next update comes out. And if you enjoyed it, yeah, be sure to, give the thumbs up thing. I find it cringe saying that, but it literally lets me know that you enjoyed. So I'm really happy I did the spotlight personally because I now know everything about the mod. And I can stop rewatching other mod spotlights and asking my chat questions on what the fuck I'm meant to do when things happen to me. So that is until at least the new versions start coming out. Anyway, thank you for watching so much. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one. Adios.